Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scotty.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 140 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined this week by Miss Mimi Melendez. Mimi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
Hey, it's my pleasure as always, Mimi. Ayaz couldn't be with us this week at all. He's going for a few things outside of the podcast, so all the best to Ayaz. We shall see him, I'm sure, next week. But as for now, we make do with Mimi, the very good replacement, of course. Mimi has been on a number of times before. Let's dive straight into the review part of the show, though. Let's waste no time. We're going to start last Friday, a card that I attended at York Hall, Bethnal Green, London, United Kingdom. A couple of fights to mention here. Firstly, I will start with George Fox. He made his debut. That is, of course, the son of trainer Don Charles. That's the man, of course, who has been seen in the corner with Derek Chisora probably more than any other fighter many times. So Don Charles' son here, George Fox, made his pro debut against a guy called Phil Williams, who was also making his pro debut. As you can imagine, if you look at the size of Don Charles, it's pretty normal to understand that his son is a heavyweight also. His son is, I believe, 6'6". And to be honest, I mean, we can't really expect too much of the guy. It was his first pro fight. I'm not quite sure of how many fights he had as an amateur, if any, actually. So I know obviously he's got his dad training him, which is a brilliant thing. And he just got in there, to be honest, and cruised through the 4 rounds. Nothing too special from George Fox just there. Like I say, just easing into the pro ranks. The guy that he fought actually was quite bad. I mean, I know it was his first pro fight as well, but yeah, wasn't really impressed with the opponent. But yeah, like I say, a good win there for George Fox. It's important to bank the rounds early in your pro career, and he's got 4 valuable rounds there. Something that I did notice about George is he seemed to have some David Haye-like moves, which was ironic because, of course, this was a David Haye promotions card. And for a big guy standing at 6'6", and he's heavy set as well, he moves quite well, he's got decent skills, and like I say, good for him to bank 4 rounds there. Moving up the bill once again, I now want to talk about the Cody Davies fight. Now, Cody Davies, this was the first time that I've seen him fight pro. His record 5-0 now. He picked up a win here, a points win over 4 rounds against Eric Maconzo, who's now 2-8. Eric Maconzo a lot better than his record suggests, and you do have to think, even though Cody Davies didn't get the knockout, he managed to win on points over 4. Maconzo gave Willie Hutchinson a real tough fight a few weeks back, could be a couple months back now, I can't remember, but yeah, a few months ago he gave a great account against Willie Hutchinson, and the way that Cody Davies just dealt with him was quite special. Cody Davies has got a real likeable style. Not only that, he gets in the ring. He's sporting a beautiful Mohican, and I just really like the way the guy kind of relies on his reflexes. He's got great feet in there, and especially the first round. Actually, the first round of all, he really looks special in there, and it kind of faded towards the end of the fight. But the first round, he looked really special. So I'm quite impressed there with Cody Davies. Also on the bill, we should mention MVP, Mr. Michael Venom Page. He moved to 2-0. It was a KO in the second round. In the other corner, though, Michael Kiach, who's now 1-6. It's not like he was a great opponent, but yeah, he got in there and he lost once again. Only 1 win under his belt. Michael Venom Page, I mean, a lot of people very critical of him simply for all the showmanship that he shows us each time. It's only his second pro fight, so we do have to remember that. Obviously, he's, time's kind of getting on with him. I think he started the whole boxing thing very late, so time's not on his side. I do want to see him stepped up because he likes to do all this showmanship, like I say, and some of it's quite distasteful. Some of it I think he takes a little bit too far, and a lot of people get frustrated because the guys he's doing all these kind of, I want to say, Mickey taking moves on. They're all journeymen, He's only fought 2 guys, and both guys, I think, between them have only got 3 wins and about 20 losses. So there's nothing too impressive, really, about fighting like that against guys like this. But yeah, very cocky performance from him. A brutal knockout finish, though, I must say. As soon as the shot landed, I knew that the fight was over. Sitting there ringside, he really, really connected with that right hand. And to be honest, I can't believe that the guy actually remained conscious. I thought he'd been knocked completely unconscious, but it wasn't that. So credit to the guy, showed a little bit of toughness there, but Michael Venom Page is a man that I want to see stepped up quite a lot, to be honest, from this level here. Also on the bill, we saw Linus Udofia. Now, this was an interesting fight. It really, really was. He took on Eric Nwankwo, who's actually a guy, you wouldn't have seen this, Mimi, but this guy, Eric Nwankwo, he came over here from Nigeria, I believe it was. I'm going to have to check that after because I could be doing him a huge disservice saying he's from one part of Africa if he's not. But yeah, I'm sure he's from Nigeria. I'm sure it definitely is Nigeria. He came over here to study, and he actually, I think he was finding it kind of hard financially, and he decided to go to a boxing gym, and the rest is history. He's turned pro, and he's kept it a massive secret from his family back in Nigeria. I don't even know if they know that he's actually a boxer. But anyway, I think he made his debut on a televised show, and he knocked this prospect out really brutally as well. Really, really, really impressed me that day there. And then I think he went on to lose after that. So he went into this bout with a record of 1-1. And Linus Udofia is a guy who went into the contest with a record of 8-0. And a lot of people were very high on Udofia, but he hasn't really proved it yet, and he is also Nigerian, so, a little bit of a battle here on the hands of both guys, a lot of pride involved here. Udofia started really badly. Nwankwo was all over him in the first 2 rounds. I actually had Udofia 2 rounds down after 2, and it seemed like Nwankwo just really, really very quickly ran out of steam, and he just had nothing left. When it come to the 3rd round, he was just fighting really on, well, I couldn't tell you what he was fighting on, to be honest. He was just fighting on, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. He had nothing left. He was just plodding forward. He couldn't keep his arms up. He was being hit. And I like his story, but I don't like his gas tank. He just had nothing after the 2 rounds. So after starting really well, he completely ran out of steam, and ultimately he ended up getting stopped and TKO'd in round 5. He was also down in the 3rd round, and like I say, TKO'd in round 5. So I feel very sorry for Eric Nwankwo, but he certainly gave a good account of himself for the first couple of rounds. Linus Udofia now 9-0. All the very best to him. I completely missed this fight here, but I must mention it anyway. I actually had to watch it back when I got home. Sam Smith, a lady with a record of 8-1. She fought for the vacant Commonwealth female lightweight title. Again, this is the same division as Katie Taylor. Smith, by the way, in her 1 loss, it was by decision. She'd never been knocked out or anything like that. She took on a lady called Anisha Bashir, who was actually 7-5 coming in. She lost her first 5 fights as a pro, and all of a sudden she just put together 7 knockout wins in a row. Well, she went into this contest and knocked out Sam Smith in the very first round. Sam Smith was down once, and then I believe she was possibly down again. I can't remember exactly. I think she was either down twice in that first round before the referee waved it off, or just down once, but she absolutely had nothing, and she was seriously hurt. So Anisha Bashir, who came over from Africa, 20 years of age, she's now moved to 8 knockout wins in a row, so that could perhaps be something interesting there for the lightweight division in the female side of the sport. All the very best to Anisha Bashir. I completely missed the fight. Like I say, I was actually buying a burger. I've got to hold my hands up there. Also, we have on this bill Savannah Marshall. She completely bludgeoned her opponent. The records, though, Savannah Marshall 2-0, of course. She made her debut on the Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor undercard last year, August 26th. She took on Alejandra Ayala, who was 8-2. Like I say, completely bludgeoned her here. Savannah Marshall gave her opponent a bloody nose in the very first round. She knocked her down in the second from a huge 1-2. I felt that the girl in the other corner, Ayala, did well to really get up from the first knockdown. She showed a lot of bravery. A lot of people in the venue were quite disgusted, actually, because this woman was taking a real beating from Savannah, and Savannah's a big girl for that super middleweight division. And like I say, she did well to get up, and she took a little bit more punishment on the ropes, and the referee decided to jump in and stop the fight. I had no argument with that. Savannah Marshall now 3-0, a TKO in round 2 of 6. And I believe the last fight to mention on this bill is the Joe Joyce fight, of course, the main event. Joe Joyce was supposed to be defending his Commonwealth heavyweight title, but unfortunately, due to a last-minute opponent change, Ivica Bachurin jumped in. His record 30-13 with 1 draw. I don't think he qualified for the Commonwealth, of course. With a name like Bachurin, he's not from a Commonwealth country, a Commonwealth nation, so Joe Joyce wasn't able to defend his title, but one thing he did defend was his unbeaten record. He now moves to 5-0 with 5 KOs. The knockout came in the very first round. Ivica Bachurin, he completely took a dive here, and it was quite distasteful. Sitting ringside, he completely did not want to know. It was a complete quit job. If you saw the shot, and I watched it on slow motion, I watched it live in front of me, I watched it on TV, I've seen many different replays from different angles, and Joe Joyce actually hit him with like an open cuffed hand. So it was more like a slap to the back of the head. And honestly, it wouldn't have even made a newborn baby cry. There was no power in this shot. It was completely glancing. It just skimmed his head. And of course, Ivica Bachurin went down like he was shot by some kind of heavy-duty shotgun, and he just laid on the floor, and he didn't want to know, he didn't want to get back up. He was complaining, but he had no leg to stand on whatsoever, and unfortunately, it was a very frustrating way to end what had been a decent night of boxing, really. I felt that the knockout was inevitable, but to come in the first round in that fashion was quite silly, really. If I get my famous measuring stick out, I will say that Jonathan Banks, of course the American heavyweight, and he ended up being the trainer of Vladimir Klitschko, he knocked this guy out in 6 rounds. It took Gassiev 10 rounds, actually, and he didn't get the knockout. It was a unanimous decision over 10 rounds when Gassiev fought this guy at cruiserweight, so that's something there. And also Kudryashov, it took him 7 rounds. Again, that fight was at cruiserweight. It took him 7 rounds to knock this guy out. Who else? Bellew took 10 rounds to knock this guy out, and so did Dillian White. He fought him as well. It took Dillian White 6 rounds to knock him out as well. So to do it in the first round, Carlos Takam as well. It took 2 rounds for Carlos Takam, which is quite a good result, I guess, there. But yeah, Joe Joyce did it in 1, so quite impressive, I suppose, on paper, but realistically, it wasn't anything too special. That's it for that bill there. Let's move over now to a card that happened in Canada. One fight to mention over here. Yves Ulysse Jr. He's the guy that, of course, took Cletus Seldin's very, very impressive boxer, Ulysse Jr. He can really box. He moved to 16 wins and 1 very controversial loss. He took the O of Ernesto Espana, who was 25-0 with 1 draw, now 25-1 with 1 draw. It was also for the vacant WBC Feca Box super lightweight title, a unanimous decision win there. there over 10 rounds for Yves Ulysse Jr., a very, very promising 140 fighter. Moving over now to Germany, one fight to mention over here. This one happened in Munich. We have a guy called Peter Milas. He was 11-0. He actually recently knocked out Kevin Johnson. Well, anyway, he picked up a unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Francesco Pianetta, a former heavyweight world title challenger that got knocked out, I think, in 4 rounds by Vladimir Klitschko some years back. But yeah, Peter Milas beat him here on a unanimous decision over 10. This one was for the IBO International Heavyweight title. Also on this bill, we had Marco Huck, 40-5 with 1 draw. He knocked out in the 4th round Jakub Saglam, who now has a record of 40-5. So very similar kind of record. Unfortunately, Saglam doesn't really have the names that Marco Huck has, but Saglam can certainly punch. I think he had 37 knockouts from 40 wins, but he was the one on the receiving end here. So a TKO in round 4. Marco Huck is back at heavyweight. He weighed quite heavy here as well. 220 pounds at the weigh-in, so I don't think we'll see him back down at cruiser. I'm not quite sure what he's got left either, Marco Huck, really, at this point in his career. Moving over now to Mexico, one fight to mention over here. Jose Zepeda, former 135 world title challenger. I remember he lost his O to Terry Flanagan. He moved to 29 wins inside 30 fights. His record 29-1. He won the vacant WBA Intercontinental Lightweight title against Carlos Ramirez, who was 26-0. He's now had his O taken. It was a 5th round KO for Jose Zepeda. Moving over now to Poland. Two former foes of 2 of the kings at light heavyweight, of course. Andre Fonfara, we've seen him fight Adonis Stevenson twice. On one occasion, he got knocked out in the 2nd round. And also in the other corner, Ismail Salah, he of course got knocked out in 2 by Kovalev. So the home fighter here, Andre Fonfara, 29-5, moved to 30-5, a TKO in round 6 for him, and Ismail Salah, 25-6, his record now. A very good win there for Fonfara. I'm quite surprised that he was able to get the stoppage, because Silla is quite a slick boxer when he's got his best form going. But Fonfara looked so shocked when he took on Adonis Stevenson. I think it was the last time he took him on. So yeah, I'm surprised he was able to get the knockout there. Moving over now to the Metro Radio Arena in Newcastle, Tyne Wear, United Kingdom. A couple of fights to mention here. Glenn Foote moved to 23-3, a points win over 4 rounds against Sam Omidi. Jake High managed to get a win, and he moves now to double figures, 10-0. He got a points win over 6 rounds against Adam Jones, my favourite journeyman, now 8-34 with 6 draws. Ricky Burns, he took on a guy called Ivan Negach, who was 10-5. Ricky Burns was having his 50th professional fight. They didn't show it on the TV. They actually showed it on Facebook Live, which I felt was a little bit undermining, to be honest. Yeah, Ricky Burns got the win, of course. He made his opponent retire after 4 rounds, so a good win there for Ricky Burns. 42-7 with 1 draw now. Also on the bill, Arfan Iqbal took on Simon Vallily. 13-1 Simon Vallily, Arfan Iqbal 12-0. It was for the English cruiserweight title that belongs currently to Arfan Iqbal, and also before the fight it belonged to Arfan Iqbal. Yeah, it ended up being a split draw over 10 rounds. This fight, of course, was supposed to happen once or twice in the past. It finally happened, and unbelievably actually ended up in a draw. So I'm sure those guys will want to try and get a rematch going. Vallily did have 2 points deducted during the fight, and I actually still felt that he probably deserved to win, but unfortunately for him, the judges did not see it that way, or at least 1 or 2 of them anyway. Also on this bill, moving up once again, we had Charlie Edwards 12-1. He took on Anthony Nelson 12-1. This one was for the vacant WBA Continental Super-Flyweight title. Oh my gosh. Boy oh boy, in the 2nd round, Charlie was just using his left jab to set up this absolute peach of an uppercut, which put Nelson face down on the canvas, and I could not believe he got back up, because Charlie stood over him. He probably thought that the fight was over at that point, And in the second round, once again, Charlie was able to put Nelson down with a straight right hand to the body. Nelson once again got up though, and he survived that second round. But in the third round and the final round in this case, Charlie once again he threw a jab and then a right hook to the jaw of Nelson, and once again Nelson fell flat on his face here. And boy, oh boy, Charlie Edwards looks so good. He looks so explosive, and seriously, he looks like he's punching a lot harder now as well. So I, after that performance, certainly want to see that Cal Yafai fight a little bit more than I did beforehand. Charlie did say before the fight that Anthony Nelson was certainly made for him, and it really did seem that way. Again, when you get the measuring stick out and actually realise that Anthony Nelson gave Jamie Conlan a fight of the year, mega war, to be honest, and then Charlie Edwards completely dispatches of him in 3 rounds. Very impressive there. And of course he's now 13-1, and he's the new WBA Continental Super-Flyweight champion, Charlie. Moving up the bill once again, Gavin McDonnell moved to 20-1 with 2 draws. It was a unanimous decision over 12 rounds against Stuart Hall. Stuart Hall now 21-7 with 2 draws. This was the fight for the WBC International Super Bantamweight title. The champion of that belt before the fight and after the fight, Gavin McDonnell. You know, this wasn't the most captivating fight, I don't think, and I think that the styles were always going to be that way. Gavin McDonnell was able to win the fight very wide on points, though, in my opinion, and also the judges. I know that Gavin said on our show a few weeks ago when we spoke to him, he said that if he didn't get the stoppage, he'd be quite disappointed in himself. I don't think the stoppage was ever really going to get presented to him, to be honest. Stuart Hall, you know, his corner said he was massively behind. Very honest work from the corner there, but yeah, they didn't pull their man out, and Stuart Hall's got, you know, he's got the heart of a lion, so he was never gonna, you know, look for an easy way out. He just had to dig deep, and you know, he lost very handily, to be honest. And I'm very pleased for Gavin McDonnell, who's had a very tough time after losing his world title bid in Doncaster last year. I think it was last year. It might have been the year before. No, it was early 2017, if my memory serves me correct. But yeah, since then he's kind of had to, you know, he's had to have 2 or 3 fights now, back to back, very hard fights, and very much 50-50 fights, and he's been able to pull the win out each time. So I'm very pleased for him. He's one of the sport's real genuine nice guys. Moving up the bill once again, Josh Kelly moved to 7-0. He successfully defended his WBA International Welterweight title, and he actually took here the Commonwealth Welterweight title from Chris George, who was 14-1 going in, now 14-2. He broke both of his hands in the fight, and apparently, it's not been confirmed yet, but apparently he could have even broke his jaw as well. So he ended up pulling himself out after 7 rounds. I mean, it was quite a slow-paced fight, to be honest, and you could see that. The crowd was completely silent. I'm surprised they weren't booing. I think just because it was Josh Kelly's kind of his stage, I guess, the fight being in his backyard. Everybody loved him that went to that card, and they didn't really want to boo, but it was a very slow-paced fight, and to be honest, Kelly had to take quite a few good shots himself, mainly to the body. I think that Chris George's tactics were quite good, but after a few rounds, as expected, George slowed right down. He started to get busted up, and, you know, Josh Kelly obviously smelt a bit of blood and really went for it, and of course, Chris George ended up ending the fight with a very bloodied nose, and like I say, he decided to quit on his stall. It did take Kelly a few rounds to get there, but he did get there in the end. And the main event, I guess, even though it wasn't the main event in terms of the way they did the whole show, but the main event in my eyes was Lewis Ritson against Paul Hyland Jr. Paul Hyland Jr. 18-0, Lewis Ritson 15-0. It was, of course, his 3rd defence of his British lightweight title. I think it's 8 months or 9 months now. He's been able to win the title and defend it successfully 3 times. He's now won it outright. Paul Hyland Jr., oh my gosh, he was down 3 times in that first round, and the TKO came in the first round. What a story Ritson has got. He was saying it after the fight, Mimi, in a post-fight interview. This guy, Lewis Ritson, obviously I'm not expecting him to be a big name in the States or anything like that just yet, but The story is that many people were saying to Eddie Hearn, you need to sign this guy, he's really, really good. And Eddie Hearn was basically saying, everybody says that to me, it just goes in one ear and out the other. And then he gave this guy a chance to fight for the British title on one of his shows, and he went in there and he knocked the British champion out and he took his title. And then 2 days later, Eddie Hearn decided to sign him. And now he's successfully defended this belt 3 times. Each fight he's won with a knockout. And his story of how he actually got into boxing and started taking it seriously was because his child actually came 7 weeks premature. And he really needed money. Money was really tight, and he actually applied for a job in a bleach factory. He was going to just be sitting there putting bottles of bleach on a conveyor belt. He was happy to do that, any means necessary to make some money. And then I'm not quite sure what happened, but the boxing just really took off, and he hasn't really looked back. So he's got a real cool story, and he's a very, very humble and modest guy as well. So very, very pleased for him. But the fight itself here, I mean, the first knockdown was a very good shot that put Highland down. The second one, I think that Highland didn't really seem that hurt. He was kind of punched down rather than knocked down, if you know what I mean. But yeah, the referee waved it off after the third knockdown, and there was only 10 seconds left in the round, which I actually felt would have probably been quite good for Highland. I think he needed to regroup. The last 2 knockdowns of the 3 didn't really seem that hurt, to be honest. But yeah, the thing about Highland is when he got hurt, he completely opted to trade with Ritson, which is kind of suicidal, really. And I mean, he showed a lot of guts, a lot of heart there, but it wasn't the right thing to do in hindsight. But yeah, he didn't retreat with his attack. He didn't turn into a shell. He went out on his shield. He's got big balls, of course. But yeah, excellent stuff there for Ritson to win the title and defend it 3 times in just 8 months. And now the world truly is his oyster. I'd like to see him pushed on to European level at least, but I believe that kid's got a very, very bright future, and he's only just 24, so he's only just getting started, really. Moving over now, though, stateside to the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco, Texas, USA. Mimi, you will have to take over here because I didn't see any of this bill whatsoever, but let me just start with the undercard fights here. Your Dennis Ugas, he picked up a win. He's now 22-3. He knocked his guy out in the second round, actually, a TKO in round 2 against Jonathan Batista. Batista was down twice in the first round and twice in the second round. Also, Javier Fortuna, 33-2 with 1 draw, took on Adrian Granados, a guy that's been on the bad end of a few bad decisions, actually. His record 18-6 with 2 draws, a lot better than his record suggests. This ended up being a no decision, actually, after 4 rounds. It went down as a no contest. I haven't seen any of it, Mimi, so please fill me and the rest of the listeners in on what happened here.
It was a very interesting fight, to say the least. It was like a lot of wrestling, a lot of holding. In round 1, usually the fighters use that to feel them out. They seem to just go straight into action. There was just a lot of holding, and also you could see the size difference as well. He loved being the bigger guy. For him, Granados, he was just basically trying to impose his will on Fortuna, and Fortuna was just basically just trying to tie him up so he wouldn't hurt him and whatnot. He did land some really, really nice sweeping left hands, and he was countering pretty well, especially in round 2. Round 2, I thought Fortuna took it. He was landing the cleaner shots out of the 2, and also, Fortuna was tying him up. Granados was trying to get inside, try to get some inside work in, and Fortuna was just having none of that. So he just kept tying him up to kind of neutralize that inside fighting, which is basically, what Granados has, really good, rough inside fighting. There was also in round 3, Fortuna started, putting some combos together. He came out jabbing. Again, Granados getting inside work in. That's where he was shining, and he was smothering him using his size. And about round 4 as well. There was Fortuna basically landing some really, really nice left hands on Granados. And then out of nowhere, they were kind of tied up, and Fortuna, I guess, punched him. And he punched him, in the back of the neck with, a rabbit punch. And then the ref took a point away, which was really shocking, to me. I mean, it was, from what I saw, it wasn't done previously in the fight. So for him just to take a point off, I thought it was like a bit harsh. And then not too long after that, he got another point deducted off of him. This time it was for holding. So I think that Fortuna just felt like the sense of urgency. So he just started like, swinging for the hills. And let me tell you something. This was the first time in the fight that Granados was stepping back at all, because Granados was in his face. And then all of a sudden, this sense of urgency just came on him and he's just going forward. And then Granados, was backing up. And then I felt like Fortuna was getting really, really successful, really, really clean shots landing on Granados. He ended up, kind of tying up with him against the ropes. And then next thing you know, they just start kind of wrestling and he ends up out of the ring. Well, his legs were still inside the ring. He kind of ends up like dangling off of the ring. He went between the ropes and he just fell back and he hit his shoulder, if I'm not mistaken, on the stairs. And from then on, it was just terrible. It was just, he ended up complaining a lot about his neck. He wasn't moving his neck, and then they put him in a neck brace. Then he was just like, taken out to the hospital. It's just completely like not the way you want a fight to end, and there was a lot of, talk as well, about the after, the post-fight interview with Granados. Granados was basically just saying that, that he was basically playing it off and looking for a way out, with the fight because he had just gotten 2 points, deducted off of him. And honestly, I don't know. I'm not, his neck, obviously. I don't know if he really hurt his neck, but I did see his head, fling backwards. And it was kind of like terrifying to see, actually. And then also it was like, there's a lot of like this, a lot of discussion, about, on whether or not it was really something that was legit, him being hurt, or if it was something that he was just making up because he knew that, he was on the losing side of this fight. And then the ref was not on his side. That's for sure.
Yeah, it seems like some more bad luck there for Adrian Granados. He just seems to, to be followed by this grey cloud. Very surprising there, though. I know that you said the referee was against Fortuna. I actually thought Fortuna would probably have his way with Adrian Granados, not to take nothing away from Adrian Granados' hunger. Of course, he seems to never run out of that. Moving up the bill once again, Daniel Roman, 24-2 with one draw, successfully defended his WBA World Super Bantamweight title against Moises Flores. It was a unanimous decision over 12 rounds here. Moises Flores, of course, is the guy that took on Guillermo Rigondeaux in that fight where Rigondeaux kind of hit him as the bell went to end a round, and he just, he laid on the floor, and no one's quite sure to this day if he was really as hurt as he made out, but yeah, that ended up being a no contest as well, that fight there. So that's actually why he's still got his O. Well, he did have his O. He actually had it took here legitimately from Daniel Roman, who, like I say, successfully defended his WBA World Super Bantamweight title. So good win there for Roman. Now 25-2 with one draw. Moises Flores 25-1. And the main event here, I expected it to go a little bit longer than it did, but me, Ayaz, and the listeners all went with an Errol Spence knockout. That is what happened, but nobody, I'm guessing there's probably a few people that saw it in the first round, but it took me by surprise, certainly. Errol Spence Jr. now 24-0. He successfully defended his IBF World Welterweight title. He took on Carlos Ocampo, of course, his mandatory challenger. We didn't know tons about this guy, but of course, when we saw the 22-0, you have a little look at his resume, a little bit padded. I thought, yeah, he's not the truth. Errol Spence is the truth, but it was very brutal. A first round KO, Mimi. Once again, I didn't see it. Please walk us through this fight.
Ocampo went in with the right attitude. He went in confident. He's never had a loss. So, he went in with the right attitude, and he just, he went in there to win. He went in there, but it just did not work in his favor. Ocampo showed an experience with exchanging, with Spence, which is not really something you want to do with him. You more want to box and move with Spence. And then actually I saw Errol, showing some great movement in boxing. He's boxing, he's moving back and forth, avoiding Ocampo's hits. He was doing extremely well. However, Ocampo did land a couple good body shots, and he was, throwing several combos as well. I don't know if it really affected, Errol Spence to any real degree. However, I did notice that Spence kind of held, Ocampo's left arm and proceeded to attack his body with the other side, with his other arm, which was pretty interesting. But basically, at the end of the round, with only 10 seconds left or something along those lines, Ocampo was against the ropes, and then they just were exchanging, and then out of nowhere, Spence hit him. In the process of him trying to, get his offense going with Spence, and he wasn't expecting it, got caught with a body shot. And you know what? And it was just over from there. And, he just couldn't get up. He was really hurt, and Spence is known for ripping at the body, and that's what he did.
Yeah, credit to Carlos Ocampo in some ways, because he really did come out and, he tried to put it on Errol a little bit. So, credit to him, but it'll probably be a long time till we see him again. I don't think anyone's going to want to fight him. It's not like you can really outdo what Errol Spence did and get a knockout in 30 seconds rather than a minute or whatever it was. So, I don't think we'll see him for quite a while, but all the very best to him. The one last fight to mention actually happened in Germany in a place called Baden-Württemberg, I think it said. Firat Arslan, he is of course aged 47. He started his pro career in 1997. He's still going. He picked up win number 43. He's got 8 losses and 2 draws. It was a KO in the very first round against Pablo Magrini, who is now 19-5 with 1 draw. This one was for the vacant Global Boxing Union World Cruiserweight title. So that's 5 knockouts on the bounce now for Firat Arslan. All the very best to him. And that really is it for the reviewing. Just before we wrap up part 1, there's one last thing to do. That, of course, is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former IBF Featherweight World Champion, Mr. Billy Dibb. Billy, welcome back on the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's always my pleasure, Billy. You know that. So we last spoke back in November 17. Of course, we had you and Tevin Farmer on the same interview. It was fun. It was respectful. But at that point, the fight was purely a possibility. Now it's real. It's happening. It's, of course, set for August the 3rd. I want to get into that in just a moment. At the time when we last spoke, you told myself and Tevin that you'd be fighting in a bit of a keep busy kind of fight in December. You did have that fight in the end. You relatively easily beat a Thai fighter over 8 rounds. I think originally it was supposed to be a 10 rounder, but it ended up being 8. You banked those 8 rounds. You won unanimously. It was a good thing, I suppose, because your 2 fights before that had only gone 1 and 2 rounds, and you hadn't really done the proper rounds since June 2016. Obviously, banking the rounds before a world title fight's very, very important. You know that yourself. Just for those that didn't see it, Billy, could you just give us a quick rundown of how that fight went on December 2nd, I believe?
I actually went really, really well. I watched it back last night, to be quite honest. I was just watching it last night. It was good. It was good against a tough Thai kid. So, he just kept coming forward the whole night and putting the pressure, and I just boxed him and used the ring and just worked on the fundamentals that Jeff had been teaching me. And so it was. I ended up winning in a unanimous decision. I won every single round. It was a complete shutout. It was a good fight. The other thing is that BoxRec hasn't recognised my last fight. I actually fought again on December the 31st in Thailand against another Thai kid and won in the second round with a second round knockout. So they haven't recognised the fight or haven't put it up on BoxRec. I don't know what's going on with that.
Oh wow, okay. Thanks for letting me know, because I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah. Obviously, a week after the fight that you had on December 2nd, Tevin Farmer fought for the vacant world title. At the time of the joint interview, at that point, you both had your own fights scheduled. We just spoke about your one there, a relatively easy win. Tevin Farmer's one was a lot different. He seemingly won the fight, but in many people's eyes. But of course, the judges saw it differently. A lot of people were screaming robbery. And after the whole debacle, of course, we saw Kenichi Ogawa, I should say, test positive for a banned substance, and the result ended up being overturned, which made it a no contest. Firstly, did you see the fight? What did you make of it, and who did you feel won?
Well, let me just tell you one thing, right? The fight was in America with the correct judges that they chose. I'm sure the majority of the judges were from an American country on that night, if I'm correct. And so for Farmer lost the decision, right? He lost a split decision. So evidently, the judges, they didn't feel that he'd done enough to win, and that fight was in his hometown. So you could imagine if that fight was in Japan. If that fight was in Japan, they would have said, "Oh my God, he got robbed because he went to Japan." But they're saying he got robbed in his own backyard. That, to me, that's strange. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, I thought it was a very, very close fight. It could have gone either way. I don't feel like Tevin won it, and I don't feel like he lost it. I just feel like he just didn't do enough to just, basically take the decision with no questions, asked. So, Gal was the one pressing the action, and Farmer was the one on the back foot. And I think I kind of worked out that the judges don't like the fighter on the back foot. They want to see the guy that's more aggressive, trying to make a fight of it. So, do I feel that Farmer won the fight? Not really. Do I feel that he lost the fight? Not really. I just feel like he just didn't do enough. That's the truth. I just feel like the decision, people are going to live with it. A guy was an idiot because he tested positive to a banned substance. That's his fault, But how dumb can you be? Taking banned substances like in the lead up to a world title fight. I just don't get it.
And I remember at the time you said that you wanted Tevin to win because you were then going to be the mandatory. You wanted to be the mandatory because you'd get paid more than being a voluntary defence for Tevin. However, with what happened with Farmer and Ogawa, is this the best kind of situation for you financially for this to all happen, for it to, be for a vacant
I'm going to
title?
be quite honest with you. At the end of the day, the fact that Tevin wasn't the champion and I was the higher ranked fighter, they gave us some leverage power when it once came to bringing the fight to Australia. And we made them an offer and they couldn't turn it down because the truth of the matter is that Tevin Farmer, he's not worth anything to any network in America. He's not worth anything. They paid him over the top when he fought Ogawa. I think they paid him like $75,000 to fight Ogawa, and he can't get that anywhere else. So, the networks weren't screaming to put Billy Dibb and Tevin Farmer on, So we were able to bring the fight to Australia, and August 3rd, it'll be over here on August 3rd, and it's going to be an exciting night. And for the Australian fans, that's for sure, because, we don't get a lot of big world title fights in Australia. So to have one here and stage it ourselves, that's going to be very exciting.
That's a brilliant thing, of course, breaking history again, or making history again. And like you say there, the fact that the fight's happening in Australia, I've got to be honest, I was very shocked because I know that they paid Ogawa decent money to come over to America. I really thought you'd be the one travelling. So just an extra kind of layer of what you just said there. I'm sure you're really over the moon with the fact that it's happening in Australia, advantage-wise.
But I can assure you one thing: it was never going to happen in the US. I've got the financial backing that I have here in Australia and support base that I have with all my sponsors is so fantastic. So, there was never going to be a fight in the US. And I told Farmer that from day dot. I said to him, listen, the fight's going to be in Australia. And he said, no, we'll see about that. And I said, well, okay, we will see. I said, unless you guys can afford to pay me over the top, then it's never going to happen in the US.
And it was a deal that just got done, I'm guessing. It didn't have to go to purse bids or anything like that, did it?
No purse bid at all. We just made an offer. They obviously came back and, asked for more and what have you. But in the end, we just worked it out. And now, August 3rd, the fight's going to take place in Sydney, Australia. It's going to be a big event for Australia. And I feel that the fact that the fight's here in Australia is going to be in my favour. Fighters don't travel well when they come to Australia.
Yeah, for sure. Very hard to adjust to the climate. I must point out, obviously, Billy, to be a little bit critical. Of course, you've lost to 3 different men. 2 of those men have been southpaws. Tevin's a very good southpaw. Do you not do well against southpaws in general, or were those 2 guys just better than you on the night, simply?
Well, against Stephen Levino, I was just young. I guess I was young and just wasn't ready for that big task. And against the Takashi Miura, I was winning the fight clearly and just got clipped. You know what I mean? That's boxing. You know what I mean? It happens. You know what I mean? So, but in my career, not many people would know this, but I've fought close to 17 or 18 southpaws, and I've got the majority of them wins except 2 losses. One against Stephen Levino and one against Miura. So. No big deal. I don't find southpaws that special, to be honest.
And one thing that you said when we had you on the phone with Tevin that kind of surprised me at the time, you said that, and I don't know if you were just being very respectful of him, but you did say that you felt to beat Farmer you'd need to stop him. Do you still feel that way?
No, not at all. It's different now. I don't have to stop him. I was talking about having to stop him if I go to the US, but I'm not going to say that I wasn't going to get a fair shake in the US, but I feel like the fact that the fight's here in Australia, there'll be 1 American judge, there'll be 1 Australian judge, and there'll be 1 neutral judge. I'm sure that I will get a fair shake, and he will get a fair shake too. The winner's going to win, and the loser's going to lose. It's as simple as that. The way I look at it is that he's going to work hard, I'm going to work hard, but whatever's ordained from God is going to be. So, either he's going to be victorious or I'm going to be victorious. It can't go. We can't both be victorious, and I accept that. You know what I mean? I'm doing everything I can in training camp to make sure that once he gets here, and once that bell rings on August 3rd, that I'm completely ready. That'll be up to me. And if I'm not ready, then I'm going to pay the price. That's just the way I look at it.
And of course, elsewhere, we just recently saw Jeff Horn lose his world title to Terence Crawford. Not many people really gave Horn a chance going into that fight. He lost quite badly in the end. Do you believe he can bounce back from that and come back and perhaps become a world champion again, or perhaps not?
Look, I'm not sure. Jeff Horn is I feel like Jeff Horn, he's a very limited fighter. You know what I mean? He's a tough, gritty fighter, but he's limited in his skill base. And you saw that against Terence Crawford. At the end of the day, I just feel like, Manny Pacquiao was sort of, a little bit over the hill when he fought Jeff, and that was good. Jeff got him at the right time. And I'm happy for Jeff. He got to make a title defense, and he got to cash in a little bit against Crawford. Whether or not he wins another world title, I don't know. It just depends if they can find him the right opponent. Jeff's a good kid, and he did Australia proud that night when he beat Manny Pacquiao. And even in losing to Crawford, there's no shame in that. Because Crawford's going to be a pound for pound star, so a future Hall of Famer, I believe. But he was just completely outgunned.
Yeah, for sure. And he certainly did win that Pacquiao fight. A lot of people think he didn't. In my eyes, he won it really clearly. Coming down to the last couple questions now, really, Billy, I wanted to ask you if there was any fights that are coming up at all that you just want to give your say on, or give your prediction on. Any fights at all, any weight class?
Well, I just seen yesterday that my good friend Luke Jackson is going to be facing Carl Frampton.
Yes.
August 18th. So, Luke is one of the hardest working guys that I've met in my life. I've trained alongside Luke. I've done many, many rounds of sparring. And, a word of advice to Carl Frampton is definitely don't underestimate this kid. This kid works really, really hard, and he's been at the top of the game, as an amateur. He's fought some really, really good amateur fighters. And, he's obviously a bronze medalist at the Commonwealth Games. He's also a representative of the 2012 Olympic Games. He was captain as well. So believe me when I tell you, this kid, Luke Jackson, he works hard, and he's earned his spot. And even though he's not fought the same caliber of opposition as a professional, but he has fought probably better opposition as an amateur than Carl Frampton has as a pro, you know what I mean? So, the amateurs that he faced are very, very clever, and, And I could tell you one thing. He's a very witty kid. You know what I mean? He's a very witty kid in the ring, and he's smart and he's clever and he makes you think.
Yeah, certainly should be a real good fight, that one. And the final thing for you now, Billy, anything at all that you just want to say to get off your chest that I may not have asked you? Anything at all that you want to say, just take it away.
Honestly, I don't really have much to say. I just want to say, thank you to all the fans out there who have continued to support me. I'm very motivated to win this world title fight. I have a reason to win it. I mean, it's at home, and this is a chance for me to make history by winning another world title in my hometown of Australia. I'm trained by the great Jeff Fennick, who's a 3-time world champion himself and a Hall of Famer. So, Tevin Farmer's in for a rough night. I promise you that. It's not going to be easy. I know it's not going to be easy for me either. But if he thinks that he's coming out to Australia just for a whole day to collect the title, because that's the way I feel that he is acting, then he's got something coming for him.
Absolutely. But listen, Billy, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. I wish you the absolute best of luck for August the 3rd in Redfern, and we'll catch up sometime after for sure.
For sure. Thank you very much.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part. Ayaz has sent me all of the latest news, so let's go through what we have here. On the undercard of Joseph Parker and Dillian Whyte, we will have 2 extra fights here on the undercard. Kell Brook will take on Brandon Cook, and Derek Chisora, of course, will take on former foe of Anthony Joshua, Mr. Carlos Takam, also a former foe of Joseph Parker, who's fighting on the main event, like I say. This one is going to be on the 28th of July. Now, the Chisora Takam fight is actually quite a good fight. When I say good, I mean in terms of it's hard to split a winner here. I'd probably edge to Carlos Takam, actually. I think he's even the betting favourite just slightly. But yeah, Carlos Takam, obviously, I think he's probably the fresher guy. And they've got similar-ish kind of styles. Both of them are very, very tough. I'm certainly expecting a 12-round fight here. But I'd probably favour Carlos Takam, to be honest, but I hope I'm wrong. That should be a decent fight. But one fight that I'm not so sure will be a decent fight. Kell Brook, 37-2, takes on Brandon Cook, 20-1. Brandon Cook's one loss came by knockout to Kana Islam, who's now still an undefeated fighter based in the States from Kazakhstan. A bit of an untested guy. He's 25-0 right now. Yeah, I'm not overly impressed with Brandon Cook. He's a Canadian fighter, but yeah, he's got quite a padded record in terms of his wins. The only real time he stepped up properly, like I say, he got knocked out in 9 rounds. He's got a couple of decent-ish wins, but no real big names there. So Kell Brook, I'm sure, will knock this guy out. Not very excited for that one. I'm not sure if we mentioned it on last week's show, but Conor Benn will be having a rematch with that guy that he was very lucky to beat on points. They were both down, of course, in that fight. That's going to be on the undercard also, so that should be probably quite a good fight there. Joshua Buatsi, he's 6-0. He'll be taking on Ricky Summers, 15-1. His one loss came to Frank Buglioni, so that should be quite a decent step up for Buatsi, finally fighting somebody that we know. Also, Paddy Barnes will be fighting for a world title in just his 6th professional fight. He'll be taking on Christopher Rosales, the WBC world champion at flyweight, of course. Paddy Barnes, a guy that obviously was a real good amateur, hasn't really done anything too much as a pro. I mean, he's only beaten 2 guys with winning records, and unbelievably, even though he's not ranked in the top 15 by the WBC, Frank Warren has managed to impose some kind of special clause, and the fight's going ahead. Christopher Rosales, 27-3. He won the title in his last fight against the previously undefeated Daigo Higa, who was 15-0, and he was able to knock Higa out in the 9th round. Also, we've seen Christopher Rosales over here twice before. 2 of his 3 losses actually happened in the UK. He got beat on points by Cao Yafai over 8 rounds back in 2015, and he lost most recently in 2017 to Andrew Selby, where he actually had Selby down in the first round. That was a loss for him over 12 rounds unanimously. So he's never been stopped himself. Paddy Barnes, not really the biggest puncher either, so probably a 12-round fight there, but a brilliant thing for Paddy Barnes to be fighting for a world title in just his 6th pro fight. That one, of course, will be happening on Carl Frampton's undercard, which is set for the 18th of August. Also, we should mention Liam Smith will reportedly be challenging for the WBO world title against Jamie Munguia. How do you say his name again? Mimi, you're better than me.
Munguia.
Munguia, okay.
Yep.
Jamie Munguia. Is it even Jamie?
Well, it's Jamie in English, yes.
Just do it in the Spanish. You're the best with the accents.
Jaime.
Do the whole name.
Jaime Munguia.
Okay, it sounds good. But yeah, anyway, Jaime Munguia, he'll be defending his WBO super welterweight title, of course, the one that he ripped away in brutal fashion from Saddam Ali not that long ago, actually. So he's looking like he's going to be, quite active. He's only a young guy. I think he's only 21 years of age, something young like that. So that's set to be happening, I believe, on July 21st. A venue is yet to be announced, but I'm sure that's what I think Frank Warren said. That's a bit of a rumor / kind of truth. So that I'm not sure how much weight that holds. But also, Lucas Brown will be returning to the ring. Of course, last time he got absolutely knocked out brutally by Dillian Whyte. He will return to the ring actually a day after Dillian Whyte's fight. He'll be returning on July the 29th against a Australian called Roger Izondrite, who, he's not going to really be able to pose any kind of threat, I don't think, to the former heavyweight world champion Lucas Brown. That will be happening in the Punch Bowl Club in Sydney. I've always liked the name of that venue there. Oh yeah, there's a couple other bits here. Paul Smith has announced his retirement from professional boxing. Of course, Paul Smith fought for a world title a couple of times, or 3 times, I think. He lost really only at the highest level, I guess, and people criticise him for not really having the wins at the highest level. Obviously, he came up short against Zoiga. He fought Andre Ward. He fought Arthur Abraham twice back to back. And unfortunately, it never really came together for him. He's got 3 really good boxing brothers, and as a foursome, they've been brilliant for British boxing. I've never had any kind of hard feelings towards Paul Smith. Sometimes he does say some unsavoury things on Twitter, but it is what it is. Who doesn't? And I'd like to wish him all the best really for his retirement. He's quite a good pundit actually, so all the very best to Paul Smith from me. And the final thing that I've got is that Liam Williams has decided to part ways with his trainer, and his trainer for a long time, Gary Lockett. He's now decided to relocate to Sheffield and train under the tutelage of Dominic Ingle. So that'll be quite an interesting link up. Dominic Ingle's stable seems to just keep expanding all the time, so I think there'll be good sparring for him there as well. Obviously, you've got the likes of Billy Joe Saunders in that camp. You've got the likes of Kell Brook at the same weight, actually. That should be quite interesting. And of course, you've got in and around the same kind of weight the Irish guy that I completely forgot his name, and I really like him, and he's undefeated. What's the guy's name? He's Jason Quigley. Jason Quigley. So, good sparring there, I'm sure, for Liam Williams. And that's all I've got. But there's a bigger piece of news than all that put together, of course, Mimi. Tell us about the World Boxing Super Series announcement. It was up in the air for a long time. We wasn't sure if we were going to finally see the fight. We thought there may be a replacement opponent. We were all sad about that. But finally, the fight that we've all been waiting for is happening. The fight where 2 undefeated champions for all the belts will be getting in the ring, and both men deserve to be in that final, most importantly. Tell us about that fight.
Yeah, so for the last and final fight for the WBSS Cruiserweight final, it's going to be Usyk Gassiev. It's finally on, and it's going to be in Moscow on July 21st. So that's something to look forward to.
Absolutely, for all true boxing fans, that is going to be such a brilliant fight. I really can't pick a winner. I'd probably just edge to Usyk, but That is such a brilliant fight. Obviously, Gassiev, still very young. I think he's still 24 years of age, and what a career he's had so far. So many brilliant wins on his resume, and the winner will move up to heavyweight. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that fight went either way. Is that all the pieces of news that we've got? Is there anything else, Mimi, or is that everything?
No, that's everything.
Okie dokie. Right, let's roll through to the preview. And in fact, just before we get onto that, I should mention the predictions from last week. I should have mentioned this in the review part of the show. But anyway, we all went with Charlie Edwards to win on points. He got a third round KO, so of course we all got that horribly wrong. We all went with Gavin McDonald to win on points, so we all gained a point there. We all went with Josh Kelly to win by knockout, so we all gained a point there. We all went with Ritson to win by... No, sorry, I went with Ritson to win. So did the listeners went with Ritson to win by knockout. But Ayaz actually very bravely and boldly went with a Ritson win on points. I don't know what gave him that idea, but that of course ended in the first round, a knockout there. We all went with Javier Fortuna to win on points. Mimi informed us of the bizarre circumstances that unfolded there, where Fortuna left with a neck brace on, so nobody, the fight didn't even go to points, so no one got a point there. And we all went with Spence to win by knockout. Of course, that happened in the first round also. So I gained 4 points, Ayaz gained 3, and the listeners gained 4. So the listeners, I believe that's a 2-point gap now on Ayaz. So yeah, very well done to the listeners and all involved. Moving over now, like I say, to the preview part of the show. We're going to start in the Masonic Temple in Detroit, Michigan, USA. This one's going to be shown on Showtime. It's actually happening tomorrow night. We have Umar Salamov, 20-1. He fights for the vacant IBF North American light heavyweight title against Brian Howard, 13-1. That's a 10-rounder there. Umar Salamov is a guy who... he's fought a couple good guys. He beat Bob Ajasaf, our very own Bob Ajasaf. His one loss came to Damian Hooper. But yeah, Brian Howard, he's 13-1, like I say, 10 knockouts from his 13 wins, and his one loss came by knockout to a guy with a losing record. So I'd probably favour Umar Salamov in this one here. Moving up the bill, we have Christina Hammer. She's 22-0. She takes on Tori Nelson, 17-1 with 3 draws. Tori Nelson's one loss came to Clarissa Shields. This one is for Christina Hammer's WBC and WBO World Female Middleweight titles. Now, of course, it's a 10 2-minute round contest, and the main event here, Clarissa Shields is on the bill. Her record 5-0. She's moved down from super middleweight to middleweight here, and she fights for the 2 other belts out of the 4. So they're both vacant at the moment. She fights for the vacant IBF World Female Middleweight title and the vacant WBA World Female Middleweight title. So Clarissa Shields fights for the IBF and WBA, and of course on the undercard, Christina Hammer defends her WBC and WBO. Obviously these two girls will be getting it on for all 4 belts at some point, I believe, later this year. In the other corner against the Golden Girl, Clarissa Shields, we have Hannah Gabriels. She has a record of 18-1 with 1 draw. Of course, once again, a 10 2-minute rounds contest here. Look, Christina Hammer is a fighter. I'm going to kind of talk about the 2 fights here. Christina Hammer's a fighter where she's a real good boxer, but she doesn't really have that power. Of her 22 wins, she's got 10 knockouts. I don't think she will be able to beat Tori Nelson by knockout. Tori Nelson in that loss obviously lost every round to Clarissa Shields, but it was on points. Clarissa Shields, I don't think she's the biggest power puncher, but she's moving down to middleweight, so there's that interesting factor there. And the lady that she takes on, Hannah Gabriels, her one loss came by knockout to a lady whose name I can't pronounce, to be honest, but she was a real banger from the Dominican Republic. So 2 interesting fights there, actually. I'm happy about the females taking the spotlight there. But yeah, Clarissa Shields versus Christina Hammer for all the marbles. That'll be a fantastic fight later this year. All the very best to both ladies there. We will be probably speaking to Clarissa Shields on next week's show. I'm going to try to get her to sing a song as well, because the last time she was on, she gave us a little bit of Rihanna. Let's see if we can try to get a few more seconds out of her next time. Moving over now to Montreal, Quebec, Canada, at the Montreal Casino. What do we have over here? We have one fight to mention. Stephen Butler, the home fighter, 23-1 with one draw. He takes on the wily veteran Carson Jones, 40-13 with 3 draws. I don't need to say how many fighters Carson Jones has fought in the UK, of course, off the top of my head. Most recently, Ted Cheeseman. And before that, he fought Ben Hall. And, of course, he had the 2 fights, I believe, with Kell Brook before that. So, very much known to the UK fans. All the very best to Carson Jones, actually. He really does travel well. And I wish him well on his travels here to Canada. Moving over now to France, we have top of the bill Tony Yoka, 4-0, of course, the Olympic gold medalist in 2016. He takes on our very own Dave Allen, 13-3 with 2 draws. It's a 10-round contest. Dave Allen hasn't really had the best time to prepare for this fight. Obviously, Dave Allen, a very, very brave fighter. We don't have to say that. We all know that. He's shown that before against Dillian White. He's shown that before against Luis Ortiz. But this is, a fight where he's having to travel for. And as much as I really do love Dave Allen, I'm a huge fan of his. Who isn't? I don't see him winning this fight, and I think that Tony Yoka will win this fight for sure. We've gone to the predictions on here, and Dave Allen actually retweeted the poll. So loads of his followers have voted on it, and I'm sorry for the loyal listeners of the podcast, but your votes have really been overshadowed by the followers of Dave Allen's Twitter. So Dave Allen has won the poll, and the listeners and the people on Twitter have voted 3,400 votes, by the way. They voted Dave Allen to win by knockout, 43%, and after that Tony Yoka on points, 22%. Now Ayaz has gone with Tony Yoka to win by knockout. Now I might go against that. I think Tony Yoka's going to win, but to win by knockout against Dave Allen, who's a real tough guy, even though the preparation hasn't really been there. Oh, it's a tough one. Let me think. I'm going to go with Tony Yoka to win on points. I think he wins on points. I don't think he stops Dave Allen. I really hope I'm right there. And, unfortunately, listeners, even if you don't think that Dave Allen will win, unfortunately, when some people retweet it, there's not much I can do. So, all the very best to everybody there. Also on the undercard, we have Souleymane Cissokho, 6-0 with 5 knockouts. He's in a 10-rounder. Of course, he also is the 2016 Olympic bronze medalist. He takes on Carlos Molina, the former IBF Junior-Middleweight world champion, whose record now is 28-9 with 2 draws. Last seen losing to Josh Kelly on the Joshua Parker undercard on March 31st. We will be speaking to Carlos Molina later on in the show. Moving over now to Mexico, we have Miguel Berchelt defending his WBC World Super-Featherweight title against Jonathan Victor Barros, a man that lost to Lee Selby, a man that got knocked out by Mikey Garcia. But yeah, like I say, he takes on Miguel Berchelt, who of course is the favourite by a mile. His record 33-1. I'm expecting Berchelt to get a win here. He'll do really well to stop Victor Barros, or Jonathan Victor Barros, because he's a real tough guy. 41-5 with 1 draw, like I say. Moving over now to South Africa, a couple of fights here to mention actually. We have a guy called Fulani Mbenge, who's 13-0. He fights for the vacant IBO World Welterweight title. In the other corner, Diego Chavez, 26-3 with 1 draw, former opponent of Tim Bradley, former opponent of Brandon Rios, a real tough and rugged and in some ways dirty fighter. I know that he got DQ'd, I think, against Brandon Rios. So yeah, that's a 12-round contest there. And on the undercard, Tabiso Machunu, 18-4. He takes on Ricards Bolotniks, who's 11-4 with 1 draw. Should be quite an easy win there for Machunu, who we all thought was going to go on to do really good things. I mean, he beat Eddie Chambers when Eddie Chambers moved down to cruiserweight, which may not have been the right choice at that period of time. But Machunu hasn't really managed to capitalise on that win. That's a 10-rounder there. Moving back over now, though, to the O2 Arena in London. This is a fight card that I will be sat ringside for. What do we have over here? We have Ryan the Piranha Garner, 7-0. He's in a 6-rounder against Norbert Ezenzi, who's 6-3. I'm expecting an easy win there for Ryan Garner, a real bright prospect for the future. That's a 6-rounder there. Daniel Dubois, he is 7-0 at the moment. He takes on Tom Little, 10-5. This one is for the vacant English heavyweight title, a 10-round contest here. I'd like to see Dubois go quite a few rounds. I know that Tom Little's a very stubborn character, and he will certainly give it a go, believe you me. He really is very, very confident for this one, and I wish him all the best, to be honest. I like Tom Little, but I don't think he will be able to win this one at all. I think that Daniel Dubois will knock him out. Hopefully it goes into the second part of the fight. Hopefully it goes over 5 rounds, but I'm not quite sure it will. Anthony Yarde, 15-0. He fights against his first southpaw, the man in the other corner, Darius Sek, who's 27-3 with 3 draws. This one is for Anthony Yarde's WBO European light heavyweight title and his WBO Intercontinental light heavyweight title. Of course, we had Anthony Yarde on the show a couple weeks back, and he did say to me he was looking for a southpaw. They've found one here. This guy, he's not been dragged up to light heavyweight. He's not been dragged down to light heavyweight. He is a career light heavyweight, and of his 3 losses, they've all come to decent opposition, to be honest with you. I mean, they were all by decision. He's never been stopped. He lost to a guy who was undefeated called Robert Woj. He lost to Robin Krasnicki, who of course is the reigning European light heavyweight champion, so no real shame in that one. And he had to go on the road, and it was quite a close fight as well, so you can imagine that's not a bad loss there. And also his other loss that came in 2017 was a split decision loss over 8 rounds against Viktor Polyakov. So no shame in those losses, really. And Anthony Yarde, I'm expecting, will probably go a few rounds here. It'll be very interesting to see how he fares against a southpaw. The first one in his career, I believe, pro and amateur. So all the very best to Anthony Yarde, a friend of the show. Martin Murray, of course, he was supposed to be taking on Billy Joe Saunders. That fight fell through, but Frank Warren still secured him a fight. We have Roberto Garcia, 41-3. He takes on, like I say, Martin Murray, a man that has been very, very unlucky. We don't want to say that too many times. He's been very unlucky to not be crowned a world champion multiple times throughout his career. His record at the moment, though, stands at 36-4 with 1 draw. Of his 4 losses, the only man to be able to stop him was Gennady Golovkin in the 11th round. I remember that. But yeah, Roberto Garcia, quite a padded record, really and truly, and he's old himself. He's 38 years of age, so he's older than Martin, who is at the kind of, the last part of his career. So's this guy, I suppose. But yeah, this guy's losses, his most recent loss came to Antonio Margarito back in 2010, so no real shame in that one. But since then he hasn't lost, so he hasn't lost now for over 8 years, and to be honest, the guys he's fought in that time, they've been decent. I mean, there's a couple of wins there that you kind of recognise the names. Omar Chavez is in there, Breedis Prescott's in there, Jose Flores as well. So yeah, not too bad, but no one on the kind of level of Martin Murray, respectfully. Martin Murray's last few opponents have been a lot better. Aside from the odd journeyman here and there. Of course, he took on Nuhu Lawal. That was a real risky fight. He took on Gabriel Rosado, George Groves, Arthur Abraham. He's fought the better opposition, Murray, and I'm expecting him to pull off a win here because I know that he's been training for a long, long time and it's really overdue for him. I'm glad he's going to get some kind of money to pay for his 2 training camps for world title fights that haven't happened. This one is for the WBC silver middleweight title as well. So if Martin Murray wins, there'll be a shot down the line at a world title for him. So all the very best to Martin Murray. He certainly deserves it. And the main event here for the WBC, well, it's not actually the main event, I don't think. I think Murray's the main event. But one fight to mention that we haven't mentioned, Paul Kamanga, 21-1. He puts his WBC international super lightweight title on the line against the very controversial 140 fighter and the new signing with Frank Warren, Mr. O'Hara Davies, 17-1. This will be a 10-round contest. O'Hara Davies has decided to dye his hair yellow again, or gold, or whatever it is. So yeah, he never fails to let the people down, O'Hara Davies. And Paul Kamanga, his one loss was by decision. It was to a guy called Aslanbek Kozayev. And once again, he doesn't really have the wins or the names on his resume. But one thing that I will mention, he's coming off a win against Christopher Sabaya. That was his last fight. That was back in November of 2017. It was a unanimous decision win over 10 rounds. But Christopher Sabaya was supposed to take on Ohara Davies a couple weeks back, or about 4 weeks ago when Ohara Davies fought. So yeah, that is one thing there. He was supposed to be taking on Sabaya, and that fight didn't happen. So he's now taking on a guy that beat Sabaya. So no real problems with that. The guy's quite a decent fighter as well. There's a belt on the line, so no problem with that. I hope that Ohara Davies goes in there, looks good again, and gets the win. Moving over now, though, to the SSE Hydro in Glasgow, Scotland, United Kingdom. What do we have over here? This one's going to be shown on Channel 5, by the way. It's a Cyclone Promotions bill. Top of the bill, really. The only fight to mention, to be honest, on this card. Josh Taylor, 12-0, puts his WBC Silver Super Lightweight title on the line against the former WBC World Champion Victor Postol, 29-1. Victor Postol, a really, really good fighter. His only loss came to Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford couldn't knock him out. It was by decision. And, of course, Postol, known as the Iceman, has got so much about him. A lot of people, overlook him. A lot of people in this fight are overlooking him, to be completely honest. And he's a real tough and game guy. Of course, a Ukrainian fighter. Which Ukrainian fighter isn't tough? But yeah, he is the away fighter here, and he is the opponent here. So a brilliant step up for Josh Taylor once again. Again, Victor Postol was supposed to be taking on Regis Prograis, and he had to pull out with an injury. He's had a little bit more time to regroup and stuff like that, and he takes on Josh Taylor here, a completely different fighter dynamically to Regis Prograis. But yeah, nonetheless, a very, very hard fight. I'm going to go with Josh Taylor to win on points, though, and the listeners have gone with Josh Taylor to win by knockout, and Ayaz has also gone with Josh Taylor to win. He's gone to win with Josh Taylor on points. So yeah, me and Ayaz agreeing Josh Taylor on points. The listeners going with Taylor by knockout. But I tell you what, it's a very, 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 very hard fight, this one. It really is. And like I say, I give them so much credit for the matchmaking that they're doing with Josh Taylor. They're not waiting around with him. They're not padding out his record. And they're just going for it as fast as they can. And I believe this is a brilliant fight. It's the right fight as well. And Victor Postol brings something to the table. He certainly does. Even though he's 34 years of age now, he's very experienced. He's still the number 2 rated guy on BoxRec at that weight. Only second to Regis Prograis. So a good fighter in Postol, to be honest. Not really a big banger. That's probably his one downfall, but he's got many names on his resume. Of course, that win against Matisse really kind of catapulted him into, a brilliant fighter. He was able to knock Matisse out in round 10. When Matisse seemingly didn't want to fight. He seemingly quit. So, a real hard fight for Josh Taylor, a real intriguing contest there. It's a shame it's going to be happening at the same time as the Frank Warren show, so I'm going to have to watch it back. So no one tweet me on Saturday night the result, because I don't want to know it. I want to watch the fight when I get home. Moving over now to the final bill to mention, though. It's happening at the Belasco Theatre in Los Angeles, California, USA. It's going to be shown on ESPN2. One fight to mention over here, really. It's a prospect that we've had on the show before. A prospect out of the Robert Garcia Boxing Academy. Mr. Hector Tanahara, 13-0. He's in an 8-round contest against Roger Gutierrez, who's 19-1 with 1 draw. So that's another step up there for Hector Tanahara, a bright prospect for the future. Absolutely an 8-round contest there. But that really wraps up the previewing. We've brought you the reviewing. We brought you the first guest. We brought you the news, me and Mimi. We brought you the previewing just there. But the last thing to do just before we wrap up part 2 and ultimately end the show is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former IBF Junior-Middleweight champion of the world, Mr. Carlos Molina. Carlos, welcome back on the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Joy.
Hey, it's always my pleasure, Carlos. It truly is. So obviously, Carlos, last time out, the fight didn't go your way against Josh Kelly. I was there in Cardiff for that fight. I was sat ringside for it. Can you just tell us really what you felt went wrong in that ring?
I didn't do my fight. I didn't make my fight the way I needed to, and I didn't adjust when I needed to, and I feel like I was adjusting. But it was too late. And I hit him with 2 shots in like the 8th and 9th round, and then I felt like he was too smart and fast to just get out of the way and just to avoid, getting hit.
And did anything surprise you about him at all, Carlos? Obviously, you didn't really know about the guy before. He fought the fight with that hands-down style. Did he surprise you in any way? You've been in there with some of the best fighters in the world, of course.
No, he didn't, because before the fight, I already knew he was, on his feet. I knew he was fast. So mentally, we came in there knowing that he was fast and he moves good and he has good reflexes. So that's what we expected, and that's what he brought to the fight.
And a lot of boxers, of course, dream of fighting in the UK. You ticked that box on March 31st. You did it on the biggest stage possible as well. How was that for you? And just the whole part of visiting the UK, what did you make of the whole experience in itself?
Going to the UK it was a great experience. I was looking forward to that. I always wanted to get out there ever since I got to Mexico here. And even before that, I always wanted to fight in the UK. And, on March 31st, it was possible. And there was a great opportunity for me, like you said, to come back, to get back on top. And, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed, just being out there and meeting different fans out there and, meeting you actually in person. It was cool. And everything was good. The bad part about it was the fight. The decision that kind of put a damper on everything.
Yeah, it was a real shame. Like I say, it was fantastic meeting you also, and it was such a shame the following night, of course, when the result didn't go your way. It was hard to watch at points of that. I was sitting there and everybody was looking at me saying, "What's wrong with you? Why don't you want the English guy to win?" And I was saying, "You don't understand, man." But getting off that fight now, moving on to the positive stuff. I want to ask you, when you went back to Mexico, how long did you take out before you'd return training in the gym?
See, the thing is, I don't take time off the gym, really. I don't take too much time off the gym. So I try to get back as soon as possible. And as long as you're not hurt, injured, or anything like that, then you go get back there sooner. And from this fight, I didn't take too much punishment or anything at all, really. And I got back there. I started running within a week, and then a week and a half I was back in the gym. And that's the way I like to keep it, so I won't lose my conditioning. I don't want to start over every time. I don't take like a month off or anything like that. So I got back in there pretty soon.
Okay, good. And obviously, when you were sorry to cut you off. Go on, Carlos. Carry on.
No, because I got some fighters there that were getting ready for other fights, and I just got back in the gym and started helping them spar right away.
Okay. Brilliant. And obviously that phone call came for you to fight in France, which is happening this weekend. At what point did that phone call come through, and how much notice have you had for this one, Carlos?
At the time when they told me, it was 4 weeks. Say 4 weeks notice. But like I said before, I was already training, running in the mountains, doing my, conditioning, doing everything right, eating good, feeling good, and then this fight's at 154 pounds. Which makes it easier for me to make this weight, because my last fight against Josh Kelly was at 147 as a welterweight. So for me to fight at super welterweight with 4 weeks notice, it worked out good for me. It worked out good because I'm already at that weight.
And of course, the man in the other corner goes by the name of Souleymane Cissokho. That fight, of course, will be happening in Paris in just a couple of days from now. Cissokho's another prospect, very much like Josh Kelly in the fact that Josh Kelly was 5-0 with 4 knockouts when he fought you. This guy is 6-0 with 5 knockouts. A very inexperienced professional compared to yourself. However, of course, this guy was a very, very good amateur. He won a bronze medal in 2016 in the Olympics. He also actually beat Josh Kelly in the amateurs too. Is there anything else that you know about this guy at all? Have you been able to get much footage of him? I know that you had that problem with Josh Kelly where nothing was on YouTube pretty much.
Yeah, no, this is different because Josh Kelly only had the highlights. But for this one, they have his fights actually on YouTube, so you can actually go there and watch it from the first round to the end of the fight. So that gives you a better look at him. And he's a good fighter. He's a smart fighter. He's very, technical fighter, smart. He keeps composed in there. Pretty much like I guess you can't compare to Josh Kelly, but I mean, like you said, you got to know they have the same amount of about the same amount of fights, and you know, I know he's coming. They're coming in prepared to win this fight, and that's what gives me the plan to come together.
And obviously, in recent times, Carlos, people would say you're not really the same fighter you once was. I think that some promoters out there are probably looking at you as a little bit of a gatekeeper now. Does that offend you, being viewed as a gatekeeper at this point?
No, it doesn't. Not at all. I mean, I lost 3 fights in a row, and I'm in a tough spot right now, and I got to dig myself out of this spot. And you know, you got to do it with the next fight on the table. You know, everything else that happened before. It happened already, and I know that's what's good. That's what I love about boxing is one fight away from you know, getting back on top. And this is my opportunity again. That's why I stood in the gym. I've been working on what I needed to work on, and I'm ready to, you know, fight like I used to fight, if not better.
Obviously, when you won the world title, it was against Ishe Smith. Coincidentally, you and his records are almost the same right now. He's certainly viewed as a gatekeeper. He's never been stopped in 10 losses. You've never been stopped in 9. Are these fights becoming must-win fights for you now at this stage? And I don't want to bring up the fault of losing, but if you were to lose here, you know, would you be happy with that tag as an official gatekeeper, a guy that really, you know, prospects want to fight just to try to be the first guy to stop you?
Yeah, I guess I'm not like I guess I won't never accept it like that. I mean, I don't take it personal if somebody if they were to call me the gatekeeper, but as far as me thinking of myself as a gatekeeper, then no, I still got hopes. I still got hopes of getting back on top, and I know that with one fight it could change it all. Yeah. But at the same time, by calling me a gatekeeper, it gives me more opportunities, and I'm all for it, I guess.
Yeah, very well answered that question there, actually. There's a heavyweight right now in the UK, Carlos, who just turned pro, I think it was in October of last year. He was he is an Olympic silver medalist from 2016. He lost very controversially to Tony Yoka in the Olympic finals, but he's 32 years of age, a guy called Joe Joyce. He doesn't really have much time for learning fights or fights against journeymen, so he really wants to try and fight the big fights straight away. But the problem with that is most of the heavyweights he wants to fight, they're all on the verge of a world title shot themselves, so they don't really want to, you know, face the possibility of losing to a guy that's only had 4, 5 or 6 fights. It's very much a high risk, low reward kind of fight. But you, however, have shown back to back now that you are prepared to fight guys who have only just had a few fights as a pro, and I'm guessing for not that much money. And obviously losing to guys like that is quite damaging, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things, you know, to those people that don't quite know the amateur game. When they look at your resume and see a loss from a guy who's only had 5, 6 fights, it seems quite damaging. So my question is, are you a little bit crazy wanting to fight these guys for high risk, low reward, or should the other people in other weight divisions do the same as you also?
I don't know. I guess I'm in a different spot, I guess, right now, because I know I've always taken the toughest fights ever since the beginning of my career.
That's true.
And I feel like I've always been in the same situation, but I know that by winning this one fight changed everything. So that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me taking these fights. Like, I know they're tough. I know this Souleymane is going to be a tough fight. But I know that winning this fight is going to get me back on top. And like you said, I mean, taking this fight for not as much money as I should be getting, or I could be getting, but I know winning this fight, the next one, you know, there it is, you know, because I've done it before, and that's how I became world champion. And that's just the way I come, I guess. I'll fight anybody.
And I believe you 100%. My fingers are firmly crossed for you, Carlos. And I just want to ask you 1 or 2 more questions now before I let you go. I know that you're in the airport in Mexico waiting to board a flight to France. Did you get a chance to see Terence Crawford's win against Jeff Horn? If not, that's fine. My question really is, who do you believe is the ruler right now at 147? Who's the best? Is it Errol Spence? Is it Keith Thurman? Or is it Terence Crawford, who, of course, has only just moved up?
I did see the fight. It was just on highlights, so I didn't see the the actual fight, but I saw the highlights, and I actually think that the best at 147 right now has to be Crawford. I mean, Thurman's coming off an injury, surgery, and you don't know how he's gonna come back. So that's up to, we got to see that first, see how he comes back. Spence, I like Spence too. He's aggressive. He works the body. He fights different for a southpaw, and I like that. I like how he fights. He attacks different than southpaws. I guess working the body is one of the difference. But I think I like what Crawford. I like how he adjusts in the fight. At any round, he can just adjust, and I feel like that's gonna make it hard for anybody to beat him at 147.
Yeah, I totally agree, and also the fact that he can just switch stances so simply is a brilliant thing. I think.
But I think he's a better southpaw though.
Who's a better southpaw?
Crawford. You say he can switch styles.
Yeah.
I mean, stance, but I think he fights better as a southpaw and a right-hander.
Ah, right. No, that's an interesting thing. Yeah. You could be right, to be honest. You really could be right. And finally, Carlos, I just really wanted to give you a chance, just to say anything that I may not have asked you that you want to get off your chest. Is there anything at all you want to say before we let you go?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the only thing I can say right now is that I know I'm coming off 3 losses, and I was coming off 3 losses one time in my career before, and then after that, I adjusted. I got my mind right. I got like on a 15-fight win streak, and I became a world champion. And that's what I want to do again. And I know that I could do it. And it starts this Saturday in this fight.
Absolutely. God willing, my friend. But Carlos, listen, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, not just for the podcast, but every time we speak, it's brilliant. I really wish you the best of luck for Saturday, and we will definitely speak again after for sure.
All right. Thank you, Joey. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 140 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Mimi Melendez has been my fantastic co-host this week. A big thank you to our 2 guests on this week's show, Carlos Molina and Billy Dibb, 2 former world champions in their own right from 2 very different continents. The biggest thank you of all goes out to you, the listeners that tune in each and every week. The Prediction League currently sits at myself on 45 points, Ayaz on 48 points, and you, the listeners, in the lead on 50, halfway to the finish line, which is 100. But that's all from me and Mimi. Enjoy your weekends, people, and we shall catch you all again next week.